funny enough, we've actually talked quite a bit about this already in this interview, but right to compute is a big one. That's going to be a growing thing across the nation. Several states have already introduced it. We're hoping that eventually makes its way to Congress. That would be very exciting. That'll be a big one. Another one will be how people are using it in the workplace, right? Should we be as scared about it replacing jobs as we should be, or as we currently are, I should say? And my argument, I think what we're going to hear a lot today is it's actually augmenting work. It's making it easier and faster. I'll be the first to admit, I use AI daily throughout the day, and it's super, super useful, and I get my work done faster, and it's consistently better as well. Is it going to replace me? I don't think it's going to replace me anytime soon, but if it can make my work better, and if I'm doing the work of 1.5 people, essentially.
Americans are capable of achieving extraordinary things when they have the freedom and opportunity to do so. This is American Potential.
Welcome to the American Potential Podcast. I'm your host, David From. So once again, we're on the road in Montana. Big Sky Country at the Big Sky Bright Future Economic Summit hosted by Governor Gianforte and leaders here in Montana, talking about how do we unleash economic, energy. How do we work to unleash, the economic abundance that we can all really enjoy and that these states can enjoy. And we're joined by Tanner Avery, who's the policy director of the Frontier Institute. He's going to be moderating a panel today talking about AI, energy, and I'm really excited to welcome you here and to have a great conversation about how do we keep making Montana and other states like it better and better and really unleash the economic potential that they have.
Well, thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. Yeah, it's been a fun journey learning about AI in the last few years. I think pretty much the whole world's had to figure out what this is and its implications. And there's some really great opportunities for Montana and for people and quite frankly, freedom as well. That's
great. Yeah. So when stepping back, you're a guy who really I'd consider an expert on policy in Montana. What are some of the things that are happening right now that you're excited about?
Yeah.
And what are some of the things that you would like to see happen in the future that maybe could be coming?
Definitely. On the policy front, I'm actually going to wrap those two questions together.
Sure.
I think the really cool thing that Frontier Institute really championed this last legislative session is called the right to compute. It's based on this idea of the First Amendment, something that we're all pretty familiar with, right? Yeah, exactly. And what we wanted to do is make sure that we clarified that modern technological tools like computing, AI, have the same protection as the printing press. They're the modern day printing press. We should be able to protect them in the same way with really robust protections from government overreach. We got that done in Montana, put that into law, had a really great support. And we're starting to see that spread across the nation. This idea that, speech isn't just stagnant. If I type something on a computer and I turn it into code or whatever you might use that for, whether it's online or anything, it's still speech, and we should be protecting it from government overreach. And I think the last thing that I saw was 1,000 bills introduced the overwhelming majority, probably 95% of them were to crush innovation, AI. A lot of it's fear mongering, and there's been a lot of fear mongering around technology for a long time, but we shouldn't be doing that. We should be protecting it as if it's the modern day printing press.
I think that's a great analogy, the way to think about that. I love the printing press analogy because it really is true. I mean, unfortunately, there's an instinct amongst a lot of, policymakers, office holders, when they encounter something they either don't understand or someone gets them worked up about, to just try to regulate it and stop it. And that's so dangerous. I mean, America would not be America if we did that. I mean, like all the innovation we have, new things can be scary. And I think kind of thinking it through. So what do you think is for Montana, for instance, what promise do you think there is with regard to AI and things related?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's quite a few. I'll try to pick a couple. First of all, labor productivity, right? So how much effort do I have to put into something to get a result from it, right? So if I'm building a house and I can build a house in 4 days faster, all of a sudden it's more profitable. Montana is one of the least 5 labor productive states in the nation, which is a huge deal, obviously. we can bump those numbers up. And all of our main industries, healthcare, ag, education, those are all the industries in which AI specifically are disrupting, but not necessarily replacing jobs as much as helping people to be more productive. So if we can make a teacher more productive overnight by using AI tools, and they can get more work done, or quite frankly, a doctor, or really any of these industries, that's a huge deal. And that means more profitability for ranchers, for teachers, for really you name it. There's a big one there. The other one that I'd point to is data centers. It's a lot of people are, scared about the many new technology. People are going to be scared. But looking back in history, one of the cool things that we've seen is most people didn't have electricity until industries started saying we need power for mining, for manufacturing. And this is 1800s, early 1900s. And what they did is they footed the initial part of the bill and built out the grid, getting power generation, which allowed power to go to everyone's house. So what we're doing is it's today we call it bring your own power. This concept of you have big tech companies who are willing to pay for nuclear power, which is incredibly, incredibly expensive. But once we get over that hurdle, it's a lot easier to expand and understand the technology. And so I think we're seeing a repeat of that. And so when we see data centers, I see as an opportunity for actually lowering the cost of energy long-term for everybody.
Well, we've had a number of different leaders in the energy industry, CEOs of companies, coal companies, natural gas companies, oil, and then, policymakers, and data centers pop up all the time. I mean, it's the issue, and everyone blames it on AI. I like to remind folks, hey, if you like to look at pictures of your kids, your grandkids on your phone in the cloud, you better like some data centers.
Using data center
because we just consume more and more data, but I think the shocking thing that not everybody really understands in the general public is that spike that's happening, the amount that we're consuming and how we need energy. It's not like, we're trying to get better forms of energy or this, that. Well, of course we are, but we need the energy. We have a demand for it. So I think it's such an interesting time for policymakers, and at the state level, a lot of, this is where a lot of it's playing out. So for Montana, what do you see with regard to data centers? Like, what's happening and what's the approach that Montana's taken?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say light regulatory touch is the overall theme.
We'd like to hear that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, courtesy of our legislature and our governor, and a lot of the industry stakeholders that have been working to make Montana a better place for businesses. We'll see long-term, how we're impacted by data centers. Right now, we're pretty early on. A lot of other states have been seeing the boom a lot quicker. The good news is that we are an energy abundant state.
Yeah.
We have every type of energy you can really imagine, which means we can hopefully quickly deploy that. The big barriers we're going to face is most of the regulations and uncertainty that they might cause in terms of permitting processes. And we've done a lot in Montana to streamline our permitting process, make it clear, what I like to call MEPA clarity, which is Montana Environmental Policy Act clarity. That's a huge thing. You're hearing a lot of people talking about that today. But there is more to do. We can continue to really reduce our regulations and allow for innovation to thrive.
Well, I think, like I said, I think the secret's out about Montana. People get that it's not only one of the most beautiful states you're ever going to set foot in, but that it's open for business. We talked to Governor Jim Forday earlier, and that's something he just said verbatim, and I think that it's been backed up from a policy standpoint. What do you think is one of the real selling points if someone when it comes to economic growth, or someone wanted to move here, or someone wanted to locate a business here? What do you think is the selling point for Montana?
I think we got to take a step back and see how it's previously been sold in the last 10, 20 years. And as someone who's a policy wonk, I read all of these things that no one else is really going to read. And one of those things is the number one reason historically why people moved here was quality of life. Yeah. I don't think that's gone away. I think people are still moving here because they're close to the mountains. We've got plenty of outdoor activities, and you can leave work and in 15 minutes be biking and hiking. That is still there, but we're seeing other factors rise. And some of those are economic opportunity. For 50, 75 years, we had brain drain. All of our young people leaving Montana was a huge issue. I mean, you can look at historical newspapers going back to when Butte was one of the biggest cities in the nation. And they talked about our young people leaving. And it's been a problem we've had for a very, very long time, starting to change. We have the most photonics companies. I think there were 20 something, maybe up to 30 photonics companies in the Valley, really high density there. So you have folks like Aurora, who are doing driverless cars or trucking, And so there's plenty of economic opportunities, which are really adding on to that. And then on top of that, we have a culture of freedom, and I think the post-COVID years has made people understand how important that is. Because if you have a tyrannical government, you can't live your daily life in a way that you want to. It becomes really over the top really quickly. And having a pro-freedom environment is becoming more and more apparent in Montana.
It's interesting you say that, like looking at a post-COVID environment, how that became kind of clarified for a lot of people. As a lot of our listeners know, I live in Illinois, outside of Chicago. We do not have a culture of freedom, I might say. And we we definitely don't have a legislature or governor who are interested in creating it. But I think it did kind of bring in a focus after, a lot of us learned a lot of lessons coming out of COVID and the lockdowns. That's like, okay, what does it mean to lose our freedoms or to really be in a liberty-oriented state? And it's become kind of clarifying. And then as time goes on, that spread gets starker and starker. I'm looking at you, Illinois, California, New York.
Well, what's funny is I think the big thing that we saw actually was as COVID happened, we had tons of license plates showing up from California, from Oregon, from Illinois, even New York, you name it. And at first, everyone was really freaked out. What I would call these people now, after we have some data, is these are freedom voters. They left their state because they couldn't go outside, which is unbelievable that was ever a thing. And the fact that we did have an economy here that was still booming and you could still go hiking, you're not around anyone. Why wouldn't you be able to? Right. Those people fled the state because they cared about that. And it's actually made Montana a more freedom-oriented state, which is a beautiful thing in my head.
That's fabulous. So just as we wrap up, you're hosting a panel, like we mentioned, on AI today. What are some of the things that you're going to talk about or you think you'll hear from the panelists?
Yeah, absolutely. Funny enough, we've actually talked quite a bit about this already in this interview, but right to compute is a big one. That's going to be a growing thing across the nation. Several states have already introduced it. We're hoping that eventually makes its way to Congress. That would be very exciting. Yeah. That'll be a big one. Another one will be how people are using it in the workplace, right? Should we be as scared about it replacing jobs as we should be, or as we currently are, I should say? And my argument, I think what we're going to hear a lot today is it's actually augmenting work. Yeah. It's making it easier and faster. I'll be the first to admit I use AI daily throughout the day, and it's super, super useful. And I get my work done faster. And it's consistently better as well. Is it going to replace me? I don't think it's going to replace me anytime soon. But if it can make my work better and, if I'm doing the work of 1.5 people, essentially, I think it's worth it. So we'll hear a lot about that, I'd imagine.
Well, it makes all of us so much more productive, particularly if we're using it well. And, that's older guys like me got to, train up and figure out how to use it well. But even in my life, for doing this podcast, there's parts of it that we rely on AI for. It doesn't mean that we're not putting the thought and intellectual rigor into it. It means that it's sharpening it, or it's, it's polishing it, and it's doing a lot faster than we ever could.
It's a tool. And that's all it is, really. Which the one thing I tell legislators, especially, and regulators for that matter as well, is AI is not anything necessarily new. We had computers doing chess in the 90s, maybe even before that. And that is the same thing. We've just gotten better at it, and we have more data on the internet. So we need more data centers for that matter. And that means it's going to get better and better, hopefully.
That's great. Well, Tanner, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Our panel's great today, and I'm really happy to hear about the work you guys are doing here. It's an exciting story here in Montana, and I expect to see great big things.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Folks, if you like this episode, please subscribe to our channel and like us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. And remember, liberty and freedom are often taken for granted. Don't take them for granted. Go out there and defend freedom and liberty. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to American Potential. You may listen to more stories from Americans working every day to expand freedom and opportunity in their communities by visiting AmericanPotential.com.